Welcome to the Gonzalo and Jessica Show, becoming porn-free and empowering your sex life.
This is a show to help men to heal from pornography addiction and grow themselves into a healthy sexual life.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Gonzalo and Jessica Show. Hello, Jessica.
Hello, Gonzalo.
How are you?
Wonderful.
You look wonderful today. You are glowing.
Thank you. You know, I was just playing some really great music and like dancing in my living room.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Movement makes you feel alive, right?
Yes.
Or I would say I should quote my first teacher, Tony Robbins, emotion comes from motion.
I like that.
I love that, right?
Emotion comes from motion. I like that.
Yeah, exactly. It even sounds poetic, you know?
It is poetic.
Absolutely. So, well, this show talks about, porn and other things, but porn in, like, I would say, in the cool side, in the way how, like, men that somehow have lost their willpower to porn, and here we share a few tools that might be helpful in their path of recovering that willpower. So what are we going to talk about today?
One of my favorite topics. I'll probably say that about all of them. Self-compassion versus self-esteem, and what the differences are, what the similarities are, and how each one affects us. Self-esteem and self-compassion can affect us in similar ways and polar opposite ways.
Let's start, defining this. Let's start defining both. And, if you can add, why taking both into account can help a man that is recovering from porn addiction.
Absolutely. So let's start with defining self-esteem. So we can all go back into our memory banks and think about the times and the moments in our lives when we felt really good about ourselves, really good about who we are. And for most of us, we're going to pull up in our memory banks accomplishments. Maybe the time that we got an A on that exam we studied really hard. The time when, you were at the gym and maybe you were bench pressing more than anyone else in there that day. The time when you got a big fat raise at work and a big promotion. The time when you worked so hard to feel really good about your physical appearance. Or when you went and bought that new outfit and you tried it on and you were like, I have to have this. I feel amazing in this. So all of those things really elevate our self-esteem. They are accomplishment based. And here's the kicker. They are comparison based. We're either comparing ourselves with other people to measure our self-value. I'll say that again. We're comparing ourselves with other people to measure our self-value. And other times it can also be measuring our value based on our previous self. Maybe we used to be living our life in a certain way that made us feel good about who we were. And now maybe you're addicted to pornography and you're comparing your current self to your old self and you're feeling terrible about who you are. And that comparison brings me to one of my favorite quotes by Teddy Roosevelt, the president, Teddy Roosevelt. And he said, comparison is the thief of joy. Comparison is the thief of joy. And every single time when a person has low self-esteem, it's because we're playing that comparison game. And it robs us It robs us and takes away from that feeling of being a valuable person. Therefore, we think poorly of ourselves. And this is dangerous. This is highly dangerous for our well-being because it's a constant roller coaster, because no single person is ever going to be the best or even better than average at everything we do. And every time we do the comparison game, which is happening constantly, and we fall average or below average, our self-esteem goes down. And so that's why it's very dangerous. And every single person who lives by self-worth based on self-esteem, it's going to be a roller coaster. It's going to be a roller coaster. And so often that right there, pornography addicts are extremely dependent. They've trained themselves, or more so, it's easy, like society has also trained this in us, to measure our self-worth based on that comparison game. And so often, especially when stuck in the throes of addiction, you're going to be on the downside of that roller coaster, feeling terrible all the time, because you're going to constantly be comparing yourself to everyone else and even your previous self. So that's self-esteem. Any questions on self-esteem before I then go on to define self-compassion?
No, continue. Actually, I would love to know both, and then, we start a conversation from there.
Okay. So self-compassion, I actually have this really cool self-compassion deck of cards here. And I'm just going to go ahead and read what they have as the definition. So what is self-compassion? Self-compassion means relating to oneself with kindness and care, rather than judgment and criticism. It is a quality that can be developed through practice and taps into the parts of the brain that have been shown to regulate emotions, reduce depression and anxiety, as well as improving our general well-being. It includes treating oneself with compassion when life inevitably becomes difficult, and deeply appreciating what is good in us and in our lives. It does not mean being selfish. In fact, research has shown that developing self-compassion leads to less selfishness and greater compassion for and connection to others. So we're not doing the comparison game. We're doing the inclusion game. We're saying, wow, okay, I wrote down this little, it's my quote, and I say, there is no such thing as failure. There is only feedback. Feedback is information. Information is knowledge. Knowledge is power. Feedback is a gift. And so you have someone who fails at something. Someone fails at something. Another person fails at the same thing. Maybe they put in the same effort and they are trying to accomplish the same thing, and they both failed. The person who's living by self-esteem is going to say, I failed. And that person is going to live by the emotions of shame, inadequacy, low self-worth. And those are the emotions that just completely destroy motivation. They destroy any inspiration you might have to take action to try again. So you're actually less likely to get up and set out what you want to accomplish if you're living by the emotions of shame, doing the comparison game, depending on self-esteem. That's the other person who failed. They're going to say, wow, that's okay. Failure is part of the human experience. We all experience it. Even my heroes experience failure. Even my heroes experience failure. And so it's okay for me to fail. And in fact, this is information, knowledge, feedback that I can use to do better next time. And I'm going to be okay with my flaws because I'm a human being, and that's the best we can expect of ourselves. Exactly. And so that is the primary difference between self-esteem and self-compassion, how it affects our emotional state, and how it can affect the results in our life based on how we can either be inspired to try again or live by the emotions of shame and inadequacy and say, why try? I'm just going to fail again. So that's kind of the difference there. And I'm going to give an example to really drive this home. I'm going to say a few quotes by one of the most famous people who's ever existed. And all right, you audience out there, see if you can recognize who this famous, I'll tell you who it is at the end. So here's a few quotes here. All right, it says, and this is a famous athlete, one of the world's most famous athletes.
Okay.
He said, I cannot accept failure, or sorry, I can accept failure, but I cannot accept not trying. I've always believed that if you put in the work, the results will come. I've failed over and over and over again in my life. That's why I succeed. I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost more than 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the winning shot and missed. Michael Jordan.
I know. Oh. I was going to tell you, Michael Jordan.
I should have let you.
You gave it away with the 26 shots.
Yeah, as I listened to them, it got more and more concise with who it could be.
Yeah, but that's true. That's true. And you know what? Based on what you've said, I'm thinking about my experience recovering from porn addiction, and at the same time thinking about the men that I have worked with, either in the boot camp that I work with the group setting or in my private practice, and I found patterns.
Okay.
And those patterns are totally related to what you just said. The men that are, dealing with this addiction to porn, they are completely auto-inflicted, covered in shame and guilt.
Yes.
Like massively. And as a matter of fact, it's not a matter of like, I feel shameful or I feel guilty because of my addiction to pornography. No. Most of the times, that shame or that guilt comes from even experiencing sexual desire,
right,
which takes us to somehow a primal wound, as Carl Jung would define, a primal wound that was the origin of this kind of like dissociation from something as natural and as beautiful as their own sexual desire.
Right.
And they reject that because it's very attached to shame, to guilt, to sin, to whatever it is, and when you start like digging a little bit, you're going to find that there is an experience that is like a conflict that has not been resolved, some sort of like childhood trauma, some sort of like situation that has been attached to that belief that is really, like down into their subconscious mind, and it is acting from the unconscious part of their mind. So it's coming to the surface in destructive behaviors or the destructive behavior of the addiction. And when you start actually healing the relationship with that man and their sexual desire, then the rest starts fixing. It's like a miracle. I've seen it.
Yes.
It's like a miracle when they start like accepting it is okay to feel sexual desire. I am a sexual being. It is okay, because I mean, many narratives from culture will condemn their sexual desire. Can be coming from the political institution, coming from the marketplace, coming from the religious institution, coming from, it doesn't really matter. Like when they attach shame and guilt to something that is completely natural as feeling desire, feeling sexual desire, then that becomes a problem. And it's like a snowball growing, like keeps on growing, keeps on growing, keeps on growing. And you know what's another pattern that I've found? Another pattern is that the men that are suffering with porn addiction, they have a very destructive standard, which is perfection. And not only like it's perfect, they think that they should be perfect. Now they know how bad porn addiction is. They know that they should be perfect. They must be perfect, and that comes from, first of all, is false. Like that cannot be a reality. There's no such thing as perfection, and like they are not capable of embracing their own flaws. They can't. And if something is not perfect, they start with a horrible inner dialogue where they are constantly self-destroying themselves. Exactly. I've seen that so many times. Like they start this vicious cycle of judgment. I judge because I feel sexual desire. I judge myself because I masturbated to porn. I judge myself, and they start judging themselves so much that their self-image gets completely shattered, completely destroyed. And this is where this beautiful tool of self-compassion can come very handy to start like creating a space for them to finally breathe.
Yes, yes. I like that you call it a tool. It's a tool and it's a skill. It's both. And, when you were saying, that they're living by the emotions of judgment, self-judgment, that judgment stems from the comparison game. When you compare and it's not what you want it to be at, then the judgment comes in, and that's living by self-esteem rather than self-compassion. And
this is something like, I don't remember who shared this concept with me, but it's kind of like the toxic happiness blueprint. In other words, they have in their minds, they have a blueprint of how their life should be in order to be happy. And if their real life, their current life, doesn't match that idea, that blueprint that they have in their minds, they immediately decide to be unhappy and start judging themselves.
Right.
And judgment, especially to yourself, sooner or later is going to take you to a space of guilt. And guilt is the worst trap of the ego. So in other words, look at how complex the inner game that they are playing, not knowing that they're playing this. In other words, it's kind of like they're setting up the entire game to lose.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't play that game. Don't set up that game. Step aside and start using self-compassion, so that you're not that part of that game anymore, and you can really start healing. But from a place of judgment, there's no way that healing can happen.
I agree. And the cool thing is when you develop self-compassion, the thing that naturally follows is self-esteem. I'm not trying to, demonize self-esteem, because it's a fantastic thing for us to have. But the way that we can actually get self-esteem the fastest, the easiest, the most powerful is to have self-compassion first, and self-esteem kind of attaches onto that. And I would say for, the audience out there listening, if, Gonzalo just talked about a lot of people have in their mind the happiness blueprint. We have this clear definition in our mind of what life must look like before we can be happy. And if you have that in your mind and you're not happy because you don't have it, then there's the first thing that's coming to my mind right now is there's two paths you can take to get to that place of happiness where you're winning. And that's either one, well, first ask yourself, is that a realistic blueprint? And if the answer is no, then change your blueprint to be something realistic. That's one way. And, but then you still have to take action, which leads me to the second one. If you ask yourself, is my blueprint happiness a realistic thing that I can obtain? If the answer is yes, then you need to start changing your actions, your thoughts, your behaviors, your decisions, and most importantly, the subconscious work, because the subconscious work is going to dictate, our subconscious state of being is going to dictate our emotions, our behaviors, our, things like that, that can then make the roadmap to get to that place where we imagine as our happiness blueprint. So,
one of the things that you're mentioning now really gets my attention, and it's about creating that, as you call it, realistic blueprint, right? I have the recipe. It's not mine. It's not mine. It actually comes from this great author that I totally recommend, Jonathan Haidt, and his book, The Happiness Hypothesis. Is the book with the most beautiful book cover that I've seen in my life. It's an elephant swimming.
okay.
I
love that. Who doesn't love elephant swimming? It's like so
who
peaceful.
love
it's like freedom.
I don't know anybody in the world that wouldn't love an elephant swimming, Anyway, so basically is when you change expectations for appreciation, because as a matter of fact, if you review the Dhammapada, the teachings of Buddha, right, you're going to find that the Buddha taught that the beginning of suffering is attachment, and when you attach yourself to an outcome, or your life should be this way or something like that, life is not going to, there's no way you can experience a joyful, happy life, But when you start like literally changing or leaving behind expectations and embracing appreciation, this is where your life totally, change for the better. So it's that's the recipe, like you wanna start experiencing a happier. There's no thought. I mean, that's a very subjective topic, because like, what is happiness? Like we say, oh, I want to be happy. I want to be happy. Life is everything. Life is everything. And we're going to live all kinds of experiences. But for sure, if you start appreciating what is in front of you, you will be happier.
That's right.
Because everything is going to happen in your life.
Right. And you know, the neurochemical definition of happiness is living by the hormones of serotonin and oxytocin. And
Hmm.
when we are living by the emotions of gratitude and appreciation, guess what? We're living by the neurochemical definition of happiness.
Yeah, as simple as that. So it's um, the thing is, you know what? I've seen many men that are trying to heal themselves from porn addiction, and they can't. And this is an unfortunate thing because they really have the willpower, they really have like the tools, they really have the energy, the desire, but they don't understand the mental game. And in the mental game, there's no way that a man can heal himself from porn addiction without understanding and implementing self-compassion.
I agree. And I'll actually share that with a story. My scientific editor, Carl, he's amazing. His story, unfortunately, was made publicly known in a very shameful way. And Carl, he was a professor for over 20 years at, I'm blanking on the name of the university now, is in California. And he was a tenured professor, and he was a researcher with like science and evolutionary history, and like really understands the scientific world, and was a phenomenal teacher to his students. And he lost his job, his profession, his career because of his pornography addiction, which
Mm,
eventually led to, you know, illegal behavior, since the watching pornography alone wasn't doing it. So you know, it's always like you build up a tolerance and you have to go to the more and more extreme videos, and then eventually that even caps out and doesn't do it anymore. And he lost his job, he lost his wife, he lost his kids, he lost his house, everything. And then he was living in his brother's house for a while, and he hadn't even watched pornography for like a full 3 years. And so the action of watching pornography, the addiction as far as the actions and behaviors go, that was done, that was gone. But he was not living by the emotions of self-compassion. He had not yet emotionally resolved, so much so that he was feeling so ashamed still, because he was living in the past and his past behaviors, that he didn't feel that he even deserved to put butter on his toast or jam on his toast. He would make toast in the toaster and eat it plain and dry
mm,
because he felt so undeserving still. And he
wow.
was horrified at his actions. He felt deeply remorseful for anyone and everyone who he had hurt. And that was not his intentions, but that was the
Mhm,
addiction was in control. That was
mhm,
not, that wasn't, you know, him or who he wants to be. It was the addiction in controlling him. And so that's how important self-compassion is. And so for you
mhm,
out there listening to this, if you think that all you need to do is get your behaviors under control, it goes so much deeper than that. Because just think, if you get your behaviors under control, but you're still living by the emotions of shame, low self-worth, inadequacy, just think of how that's going to affect the whole rest of your life and the decisions you make for yourself. And
mm,
oftentimes how we do one thing is how we do everything. So if you're denying yourself of a small, simple pleasure or joy, just think of how many other things you might be denying yourself because you feel unworthy of it.
mm.
A strong
Eh,
partner. Yeah, go
no,
ahead.
no, and you're touching a topic that is extremely sensitive for men that are healing from porn addiction, because that worthiness, like I'm worth receiving, fill the blank, and many men, they don't even know, they don't even know that watching porn, when you are watching porn, and I'm actually talking to the men on the audience that are actually looking at this. They are, and believe me, I'm telling you this based on my own experience as a recovered porn addict, and having the collective experience of many men that I've worked with. When a man is watching porn, masturbating to porn, they are doing one action, but their subconscious mind is saying, I don't deserve a real life woman. That's the only thing that I deserve. And they keep on building that totally unconscious, but at some point they start believing that.
Right.
And it's crazy because they don't feel, worth receiving a woman in their lives with all the beautiful medicine that the presence of a woman can bring to their lives. And they don't know that the thing they are craving the most is the feminine energy that a woman can provide. Obviously they're trying to find that in the wrong place, which is in the fantasy of porn. But if I have to burst their bubbles, is like, dude, that woman on the screen is not real. She doesn't even know that you exist.
Right.
So it is sad that many men today are creating a sexual life just in a relationship with a screen,
Yes. I'm so glad you brought that up because, like you said, that's happening on a subconscious level. And I've had men come to me who've had that conscious awareness of what's going on subconsciously. And they said, I chose pornography because I didn't think that any woman would ever accept me, that all women would reject me, and because I'm unworthy. So I just settled for pornography, is what they told me. And when we go in, I go and I work with these men and I teach them what self-compassion is and how to get it. It's so amazing because then they start feeling worthy of love and acceptance of being in a romantic relationship with someone who sees their self-worth and their value and treats them accordingly. And now I'm seeing this new amazing spark in men who are, for the first time ever, or the first time in a very long time, who are feeling worthy of bringing in a romantic partner, whether that's a man or a woman. And it's so exciting for me to watch this transformation that they have.
Amazing.
And that's self-compassion.
Oh yeah, totally. Jessica, I enjoy these conversations with you so much, but we have we have someone that never forgives, and that someone is the time.
Yes, you're
time
right.
is time is actually, we're coming to the end of this conversation. But if you have to wrap up this conversation in talking about the importance of self-compassion, just so the audience takes away, a beautiful or a hopeful idea, what would you say in regards to self-compassion?
Yeah. So I would say I'll do a little, self-esteem part first, which self-esteem is living by the emotions of the past because of our past choices, behaviors, experiences. And that, since that doesn't compel us to do good things in our life, when we are living by the emotions and neurochemical concoctions of self-compassion, it inspires us to bring amazing, beautiful, wonderful things into our life. It actually opens up the possibility in our mind to even imagine what those things are. So now our imagination gets into this amazing place and we open up new ideas and possibilities for ourselves so we can see that for our future. And then we also are inspired to make a plan and then take action to bring that into our lives.
Mm.
That's the power of self-compassion.
Amazing. I love it. I love it. And I really think that, if Amanda is listening to this conversation and is dealing with, porn addiction and wants to heal, many of the things that we've said on this conversation, if he implements that into their lives, they're going to see some progress,
A
So
lot of progress.
I want to emphasize that so far, being for years in supporting men that are healing from porn addiction, I haven't seen not even a single one that have had healed by himself. So if someone that is listening to this conversation wants to know about your coaching practice, your courses, and all the things that you offer to support men that are healing from porn addiction, where can they find you?
I'll just put a link below. It'll be my calendar to book with me. It's a free 45-minute strategy call. And currently at the time of this recording, I'm only accepting from the US and Canada, but in the future, that's going to be, I'll be able to expand that.
Amazing. Well, in my case, I'm putting the link of my book, Conquering Porn Addiction, down here. And if someone wants to work with me in Español, I'll be very happy to work with you in Español. Jessica, thank you so much.
Thank you, Gonzalo. And yes, Gonzalo beautifully serves the Spanish-speaking community. So if that's maybe your first language and you're struggling with this, or maybe you're learning Spanish and you want stronger opportunities as you're, Gonzalo serves the Spanish-speaking community and does a beautiful job.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. Jessica, thank you so much. What time is in the Pacific Coast right now?
12:04 p.m.
Well, here in Miami is 3:04 p.m. So thank you for these beautiful things that you have shared today with us. And important, on the next episode, we're going to talk about the importance of generating changes in your body in order to heal. That's going to be a beautiful, beautiful episode. So, Jessica, thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much.
And thank you, everyone that is listening on the audience, and see you on the next episode.
Bye.
Adios.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Gonzalo and Jessica Show, where you are learning to become porn-free and empower your sex life.
Remember to subscribe, and if you loved the episode, please share the love with anyone that might need it.